What we're going to talk about today, we're going to continue in our series in Revelation. First of all, for our video audience, my name is Sherwin. I'm the pastor here at Laketon Bethel. It's good to have you with us. We usually have around 1,500 hits on our video every week, so it's kind of an important thing that we do that. Welcome to all of you, too. It's good to see you. In your bulletins today, there's no Bible reading. I normally put today's Bible reading in there, but it's long today, and we didn't really have room. So that's not in there, but I wanted to call your attention to what I call the deep sheet. That's a technique I stole actually from Rob Bell. And there's 4 questions on there that if you answer those questions, it'll greatly help you follow along and learn what you need to learn. And then also the bibliographic note about William Barclay is important for all of us, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So I want to talk about tough times today. This picture that you're looking at of this bin, this is a corn drying bin that my dad built sometime in the early 70s. And a big storm came through there and tore it down. I took this picture just whenever we were there in Sioux Center. And it's pretty much shot, you know. Now, the reason it's called a drying bin, for those of you who didn't grow up on an Iowa farm, when you harvest your corn, it's got moisture in it. And they want you to reduce the moisture before you sell it, because the people that buy the corn don't want to buy water, they want to buy corn. So it has to be a certain percentage of moisture, and that's why they do that. And plus, the corn keeps longer if you get the moisture out, it doesn't rot as quick. But that's a tough time. My brother lost all kinds of trees, the chute on the silo got blown off, all kinds of stuff happened to him. And he was talking about the tough times he's going through. He's making huge fires from all the trees that got knocked down. And yes, they do have trees in Iowa. And all sorts of things like that. Now, we all have those kinds of tough times where things just go wrong for us. Eventually, we all run out of luck and something takes us. You know, our funerals are coming. It happens to everybody. Something comes along and ends our days. But in the meantime, we get tested. We get tested all the time. There's tests by cancer, flooded basements, family issues, pressure to produce. You know that every week I have to write a new crosstalk. And for pastors, Sunday comes every 3 days, it seems. And so, you know, that's just that way. And there's lots of other hassles too in my work, just like anyone else's. The thing that has gotten me through for years is this one verse from Galatians. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Now, we've all been there. We try to do good, and we get discouraged with it. And the reason that we get discouraged is there's a powerful force trying to get you to stop, doing good. It's called in the Bible the ancient serpent and his minions. It's a demonic force that wants your soul. And I've learned over the years, I can't outsmart it. You know, the devil's been around a lot longer than I have. He has a lot more experience, and I can't beat him. I have to depend on grace. And once I learned that, things went a lot better. So today we are cruising through the book of Revelation, and basically what it is it tells us that all the tests that we have are temporary, and we will make it through them. Now, if you want to study Revelation more thoroughly, the best resource on that is this one, William Barclay's Revelation of John. It's the top dog. Barclay was a Scottish Bible scholar, but before he became a New Testament scholar, he was a Roman history scholar. So he knew everything about pretty much that there is to know about the time when the New Testament was written. He could tell you from memory the years and which Caesar followed which one and all that. He was really into it. So having his background of the Roman Empire, looking at the book of Revelation is really to a nerd like me, it's terribly exciting. We're going to look at chapter 13 of Revelation today, which is kind of the keynote chapter. It's kind of the spine of Revelation. And it's the one that has been most thoroughly abused by booksellers in our day and age. All kinds of books have come out about the end times, and they are all, I am certain to say, hogwash. Okay? Now, I say that, it's my opinion, but let me remind you, I have taken a lot of training and a lot of study on this. So my opinion is as good as anyone's on that. What we're going to do is look at Revelation 13 in its historical context today. I just want you all to know what it really means, so that when these people come around and try to trick you into going to their seminars about the end times and all that, I want you to have some ammunition on that. Now, this chapter's kind of long, but it's best tackled as a whole, so we're going to do the whole thing. The question it seeks to answer is, why are there tough times? And I hope that you all find answers to those questions. Now, on the back of your bulletins is a deep sheet. For those of you who are watching this online, just go to our website, laketonbethel.org, and these questions will be there. But I want you to be able to answer by the time you walk out the door here today, who is the dragon, who's the first beast, what is the second beast, and what is the mark of the beast? And I think that's relevant to us. So let's dive into this thing. Then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. It had 7 heads and 10 horns, with 10 crowns on its horns, and written on each head were the names that blasphemed God. This beast looked like a leopard, but it had the feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave the beast his own power and throne and great authority. There's been various drawings of that. This is a fairly okay one. It's kind of interesting about the 7 heads, because at the time the book of Revelation was written, when John was on the island of Patmos, there had been 7 Caesars. So the 7th one was currently in power. That was Domitian and all that. Now the beast has 10 horns, and what John is doing is he's giving credit to the 3 Caesars who were in less than a year and a half. See, Nero, who was kind of a stinker, he allegedly committed suicide, and in the time, the 2-year period between him and the next Caesar, there were people fighting for the throne who the Senate didn't approve, so they didn't get it. But John is acknowledging that there were 10 of them. These 3 didn't get much done, but they are acknowledged here. What it does say is he blasphemed God. And that means they put down the real God in favor of their false gods. And it says that the dragon gave the beast his own power. The dragon is Satan. And it's very simply referred to there. In Hebrew, the word dragon is similar to the word demon or serpent. And so to the Jewish audience, when John talked about a dragon, they immediately thought about the serpent that originally tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. The problem behind the whole mess that we're in. So dragon is another word for serpent. And John makes no doubt about it. He says this dragon is the one who controls the Roman Empire. And the first beast was the Roman Empire. So that was pretty easy to figure out in its historical context. So he goes on here and says this. I saw that one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. The whole world marveled at this miracle and gave allegiance to the beast. They worshiped the dragon for giving the beast such power, and they also worshiped the beast. Who is as great as the beast, they exclaimed. Who is able to fight against him? So he's talking about the wounded head on the beast. Of the 7 heads, one of them looked wounded. Well, that refers to Nero's suicide, okay? Nero was very popular at first, and then he did some weird stuff. Like he He had a fight with his mother, whose name was Agrippina, and he commissioned people to build her a yacht. And the yacht was designed to go 2 miles out into the sea and then fall apart. He was trying to drown her. But she was a tough old gal. She swam to shore. And then what happened was he did all kinds of other things to try to get rid of her. Finally, he just sent an assassin. The assassin found her and it was coming at her with a dagger. And she said, "Stab me in the womb," because that's where that beast came from. So that was how she died. He also was an interesting character. He killed off a few of his wives. He married a slave boy and paraded around with the slave boy in a woman's wedding dress, running around Rome that way. But anyway, he was about to be assassinated. He fled and committed suicide. Now, what the thought of the day was, and the rumor of the day, and this is well documented in sources outside the Bible, is that there was a rumor that Nero didn't really die, that he'd gone to another country, he was amassing an army, and he was going to come back and take over the Roman throne. And that's what this is in reference to. The wounded head comes back, healed, and everybody's marveled. So they worship the dragon, who is Satan, and the beast, who is the Roman government. All right, and then it goes on. Then the beast was allowed to speak great blasphemies against God. And he was given the authority to do whatever he wanted for 42 months. And he spoke terrible words of blasphemy against God, slandering his name and his dwelling. That is, those who dwell in heaven. Yeah, it's interesting the way he words that. Just, he's not pulling any punches saying that the beast was bad. You got to remember, everything in Revelation is symbolic. The 42 months, when I was a kid, there were preachers that going around saying, "Oh, we're going to have a tribulation for 3.5 years." No, 42 months is just symbolic of a set amount of time. The real significance in the 42 months is that it ends, that the suffering is going to end, that all the testing in this life is temporary. They would get through the testing and move on. And the beast was allowed to wage war against God's holy people and conquer them. He was given authority to rule over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all the people who belong to this world worship the beast. They are the ones whose names were not written in the book of life that belongs to the Lamb who was slaughtered. See, so this beast is waging war on God's people. The way he did that was through emperor worship. Now, the emperor worship came about with really the first Caesar, with Augustus in there. And what happened was some of the religious fanatics of the day, that Caesar was also called Pontificus Maximus, or the Pope. He had a dual role in Rome. And what was so interesting is the first Caesars, the Senate wanted to declare that they were gods. See, and if the Senate said something, it was true, whether it was true or not. But if they said it was true, it had to be true. And so what you had to do every year, well, the first 3 Caesars didn't take this seriously at all. They thought, "Oh, that's stupid." They said that the Caesars had become the spirit of Rome. Therefore, they were divine and had to be worshipped. Like I said, the first 3 dismissed that, but then Caligula comes along. He was a stinker. He'd make any crooked American politician look innocent. He was something else. He pushed it. And then it laxed for a while, and then Nero came to power, and boy, Nero pushed it like crazy because he wanted to be worshipped. And so what you had to do is once a year you had to appear before a magistrate with some incense, which symbolized prayer, and you had to worship Caesar in front of the magistrate and declare that Caesar is Lord. It's very similar to a Pledge of Allegiance, only this was a little bit more serious than that. There was emperor worship, and if you didn't do it, you got persecuted. If you did do it, you got a certificate that says that you did it. And with that certificate, well, we'll get into that in a minute, but then your name was also written in the magistrate's book. John is contrasting that here with the book of life of Jesus. The book that the magistrates held was the book of death. It was proof that you were a Roman citizen, but it was also the book of death. The book of life was God's citizen of heaven registry, and that made all the difference in the world. Now, John is getting awfully close to the truth, and he could have been killed for this easily, so he adds this. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. Anyone who is destined for prison will be taken to prison. Anyone who's destined to die by the sword will die by the sword. This means that God's holy people must endure persecution patiently and remain faithful. See, all kinds of bad things happen because of human free will. It's a gift that God gives us, and we can use it how we want. You have free will, I have free will. So do dictators, so do Caesars. And sometimes they really abuse that. You know, I have relatives that died in World War II. Many of you do too. It's because a dictator made some bad choices. We have to endure that because it's temporary. And I'm sure John pretty much just shrugged his shoulders and said, well, what else are you going to do? You know, you have a choice to endure it or not, but might as well. And John emphasizes the fact that if you endure it well, the rewards are tremendous. Then I saw another beast come out of the earth. So this is beast number 2. He had 2 horns like those of a lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and its people to worship the first beast whose fatal wound had been healed. So the second beast is the organization of Caesar worship, because everybody had to worship the wounded beast. Now, they were convinced that Nero was going to return. Something about they couldn't find his body, or his body had been stolen or something, and all that stuff. But they were not right in that. Nero didn't come back. But one just as bad as Nero was ruling at the time. That was Domitian, and he was a stinker. He just hid his stuff better than Nero, but he was a stinker. So the point of this is, too, that history repeats itself. You know, Revelation is not predicting the future, but it is saying that history does repeat itself, especially for people who refuse to learn it. You know, those who do not study the past are condemned to repeat it. An artist's rendition of the second beast kind of looks like an angry Rottweiler with horns and bad coloring. But that's what one artist looked at it with. So the passage goes on like this. He did astounding miracles, even making fire flash down to earth from the sky while everyone was watching. And with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belonged to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to this statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. Scary stuff. See, they had magicians in those days who simulated all these miracles. They had what they call oracles in Rome, and it was basically an idol with a hole for a mouth, and somebody would stand behind it and speak, and that was, you know, that particular god speaking, and they had all kinds of things like that. But if you refused to worship the emperor, it was a death sentence. And it was easy to tell by looking who the Christians and Jews were, because the Romans were clean shaven. They didn't have beards. The Christians and the Jews didn't shave. You know, they thought the way God made you is good enough. So that's how they could tell. And that's pretty much how it worked. They caught them by their beards and put them in prison. So this goes on with this. It says, he required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on the right hand or the forehead. And no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. We've heard much about that, the mark on the forehead and on the hand. I was taught in high school. I went to a seminar once, and they said, "Oh yeah, the mark of the beast is they're going to tattoo your social security number on your forehead, and that's how they're going to be able to tell." Or on your hand, on your arm, the way Hitler did it with the concentration camps. And that was going to be the mark of the beast. And people did think that Hitler was the Antichrist and that his tattoos that he put on his prisoners were the mark of the beast. That's not what this is talking about. It's an ancient Jewish custom that this is talking about. You can see it here. Now, this is a bad picture because the guy's got it on his left arm. It's supposed to be on his right arm. But what that is, you see that little box on his head, and you see a little box on his arm. Those are called phylacteries. And at your bar mitzvah, at your becoming a man ceremony, you put those on, and inside those little boxes is the first letter of each of the 10 commandments. So people use it. I've actually brought some phylacteries in here one time. I talked to the local rabbi and borrowed his. And that's kind of how, so that custom is still going on today. And that's what the original readers of Revelation would immediately think of, is that the beast is trying to replace the law of God. And so that's what they did. And it talks about being able to buy and sell things in this passage, which is kind of an interesting thing. When you went to the magistrate and you worshiped Caesar, you got a certificate of worship. And they found some of these certificates, and apparently in the London Museum of Antiquities or something, that they have a couple of them on display. I tried to get a picture of them to show you, but I was not able to do that. But you needed that certificate if you were going to buy or sell land, especially. Anything that the government had their hands on. If you didn't have that certificate, you couldn't do it. People bought food all the time because, they'd go down to the lake and buy fish from fishermen and pay cash for it. The government didn't have any control of that. But it did have on property. And that's what this was. It was a certificate of emperor worship, and it was needed to make any large legal transaction. And of course, they found ways around this. But if they got caught, they were tortured and executed. So it was a nasty time. Wisdom is needed here. Let the one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. And if it wasn't for this verse, a whole bunch of heavy metal bands would be out of business. But see, what they did in those days is you didn't have Arabic numerals like we have, but you instead used letters of the alphabet to symbolize a number, like, A was 1, B was 2, etc., or alpha, beta, gamma, down the road with the Greek alphabet. And the Hebrew had the same thing. And same for Latin. They did that in the Latin language too. We still have Roman numerals today. So I can never tell what number Super Bowl it is unless I look that up. And I've taken Latin. But, the thing is, they had those numbers, and Greek and Hebrew language didn't have numerals either. And now the number in Hebrew for Nero was 666. Well, it's actually for Neron, which is the accusative form of that noun. But if you drop that off, some manuscripts say that number is 616, which would just be Nero without the N, without the accusative case on the end. Now, it's important for you to understand this because this mark of the beast is history. It's not future. And I want everybody to understand that. The Antichrist is not specifically coming to us. I always tell people, you want to see the Antichrist? I can show him to you today. In fact, you can see him yourself. Look in a mirror and you will see the Antichrist, because that spirit is in all of us from time to time. Now, of course, I've had to joke about this. You know, when I first studied this, I was living in Holland, and that was the year the Christian Reformed Church decided it was going to permit dancing. Before that, that was a no-no. It made the front page of the Grand Rapids Press. And I was kind of joking about that at the same time I was studying this. You know, 616 is the number of the Antichrist. And the Christian Reformed Church's headquarters is in Grand Rapids. The area code of Grand Rapids is 616. Is that a coincidence? I think not. Well, that didn't make me popular with that particular group, but it was fun anyway. So the dragon is the devil. The first beast is the Roman government. The second beast is the organization of Caesar worship. And the mark of the beast was this certificate of worship that you needed to make trades. And I want everybody to understand that. You know, this is, Revelation 13 has been used and used and used to make scary predictions of the future. Massive book sales have been based on that. And I bought into it when I was a teenager myself. You know, you see scary things like this all the time. Oh, signs of the coming Antichrist. Well, again, you want to see this Antichrist, just look in the mirror, because we all have the spirit of the Antichrist in us from time to time. Now, even though this is not about the future, that does not mean that we're not going to face tough times. And when that happens, remember this Galatians verse. Don't get tired of doing what's good, because at the right time you're going to reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. That's an important thing. Tough times don't last, but God's people do, and He'll walk you through it. I want you to know what the book of Revelation is really about. So I think it's a great book. I want you immune from the fear mongers and con artists who constantly prey on Christians to separate them from their money. I want you to be able to explain to people who have been misled in a different way of looking at Revelation. And I want you to know that tough times don't last, but that you will, because God is with you. And I want you to know that your reward is growing through every time of testing. You know, you are God's loved children. And He's looking forward to giving you a lavish reward. And I want everybody to believe this good news and live in peace. Let's pray together. Lord, open the eyes of our souls so that we can embrace fully what you intended for us to embrace through your book of Revelation. Help us to use this as a guide, not as a threat to people, but as a guide to grace. And bless us as we apply that into each area of our lives. Amen. As always, thanks again for joining us. We have 2 services on Sunday morning, and if you're in town, we'd invite you to come, once at 9 o'clock and once at 11 o'clock. And if you wish to support Laketon Bethel, you can go to laketonbethel.org and follow the steps there on our website. Or you can just look at this QR code, scan it in with your phone, and you can give through Secure Give, and all your gifts will go directly into our account. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.